If you enjoy videos like this, subscribe to the channel before the video starts. It was a quiet afternoon in the small suburban neighborhood. Birds were chirping, kids were playing on the street, and the sun shone gently on the neat rows of houses. Everything looked calm, almost perfect. But inside one of these houses, something unusual was about to happen. In that house lived Alex. Alex was a calm and clever person, someone who always followed the rules, but today, rules would not save them. Alex was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through their phone, enjoying a cup of coffee. The house was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock. Everything seemed normal, until a loud knock at the front door shattered the calm. Alex froze. The knock was sharp, firm, almost aggressive. It wasn't a casual neighbor's visit. Alex cautiously got up and peeked through the peephole. Outside stood two men in dark uniforms. They looked official, but something seemed slightly off. The badges on their chests were shiny, but the names were hard to read. Homeowners Association officers, one of them said as soon as Alex opened the door. His voice was cold and commanding. "We have orders to inspect your property and enforce the rules." Alex raised an eyebrow. "HOA officers? Now!" Alex's voice was calm, but inside, a small warning bell rang. Something felt wrong. These officers were acting more like police than HOA inspectors. The first officer stepped closer, blocking the entrance. "We have reason to believe you are violating community regulations. You must come with us immediately." Alex tried to hide the surprise. "Violating regulations? I don't understand. What rules? I pay my HOA fees on time." The officer's expression didn't change. "We know what you've done. It's serious. Resistance will not help you." Alex noticed small details, the fake shine of the badge, the cheap stitching of their uniforms, the way they avoided direct eye contact. They were trying to look intimidating, but Alex could tell they were not real police. Still, Alex knew it was better to stay calm. "Okay," Alex said slowly, "let's not do anything rash. Why don't we step inside and talk?" The officers stepped into the house without waiting for an invitation. Alex led them into the living room, keeping a safe distance. Every step they took, every small sound of the tap of a shoe, the rustle of a uniform, made Alex's heart race a little faster. This was not an ordinary visit. One officer pulled out a small notebook. "We have been watching you. Your activities are suspicious. You are under investigation by HOA authorities." Alex smiled slightly but tried to hide it. "Investigation? What kind of investigation?" The officer leaned closer. "You know what you did. Stop pretending. We have the power to take you into custody." Alex's mind raced. The officers were clearly not real police, but they were dangerous in their own way. People could be scared into doing things, especially if they appeared to have authority. Alex needed to think fast. "Listen," Alex said slowly, "I don't know who told you to do this, but you are mistaken. I have all my documents. Everything is legal. You can check for yourself." The officers exchanged a quick glance, almost like they had rehearsed this many times. Then one of them said, "We don't have time for excuses. You must comply. Failure to do so will have consequences." Alex's mind was spinning. It was clear that these people were pretending to have authority, but they believed that fear could control anyone. Alex knew that staying calm was the first step. But Alex also knew that hiding the truth was dangerous. A wrong move could escalate the situation. "Okay," Alex said, keeping the tone neutral, "I want to make this simple. Let's sit down and discuss this. We can resolve it peacefully." One of the officers scoffed. "Sit down? There is nothing to discuss. You will come with us." At that moment, Alex reached for the phone, pretending to check something. In reality, the camera was already recording. Every word, every movement of these fake officers would be captured. Alex knew that evidence could be powerful. "You really don't understand who you are dealing with," Alex said calmly, hiding the nervousness under a mask of confidence. The officers frowned. "What did you say?" Alex smiled faintly. "Nothing. Just, be careful. You don't want to make a mistake here." One officer stepped closer, trying to intimidate Alex. "We decide what is a mistake. Now, come with us." Alex took a slow step back, keeping the phone recording, and glanced around the room. Every door, every window, every corner was familiar. Alex had lived here for years. They knew the house better than anyone. In that moment, Alex realized something important. Fear could make people act foolishly. And these fake officers were relying entirely on fear. They believed that showing authority would make Alex comply. Alex took a deep breath and said, "Look, I don't want trouble. But I also don't need to be threatened by people pretending to be cops. Let's call this a misunderstanding and walk away." The officers hesitated. They were not used to people talking back calmly. Most people would panic. Most people would obey. But Alex was different. The tension in the room was thick, almost visible. Every second felt like a minute. Outside, the sun was still shining, but inside, the air was heavy with suspense. The audience, if they were watching, would already be gripping their seats. What would happen next? Would Alex manage to outsmart these fake cops? Or was this the start of a dangerous confrontation? Alex knew one thing for sure: the fake HOA cops had made a mistake by coming here. They did not know who Alex really was. And Alex intended to use that to their advantage. The first part of this story ends with a simple but powerful thought: appearances can be deceiving. Authority can be fake. And sometimes, the calmest person in the room is the most dangerous. As the officers stood there, unsure of their next move, Alex's eyes held a quiet warning. A warning that would make anyone hesitate if they knew the truth. But the officers did not know it. Not yet. And that was the beginning. The air inside Alex's house felt colder than it had a minute ago. The fake HOA officers, who had barged in moments earlier, were still standing in the living room. Their stiff postures and fake badges were meant to look intimidating, but Alex could see through the act. Every small movement they made seemed rehearsed, unnatural, like puppets trying too hard. Alex's hand rested lightly on the table, brushing against the phone that was recording the whole scene. Calm, quiet, and careful, that was Alex's strategy. Panicking would only make them sloppy. These officers thought they had power, but Alex had patience, intelligence, and one big advantage: knowledge. "You will answer our questions," one officer said, his tone low but harsh. "We know what you've been doing in this community. You can't hide it." Alex tilted their head slightly, pretending to look confused. "I honestly don't know what you mean. Can you explain?" The officer's eyes narrowed. "Don't play games. We have evidence. You are breaking rules, major rules." Alex nodded slowly, pretending to consider the words. "Rules, major rules, I guess everyone sees things differently. But I have all the documents. You're welcome to check." The officer snorted. "Documents won't save you." At that moment, the second officer stepped closer, shifting uncomfortably. He clearly didn't expect resistance. "We have instructions to make sure you comply immediately. No delays." Alex's mind raced. They knew these officers were bluffing. Real cops wouldn't behave like this without proper procedure. But these fakes had one advantage: boldness. They were confident enough to try to intimidate someone who was not expecting trouble. That confidence could be dangerous. Alex smiled faintly, hiding a shiver of tension. "You really believe shouting and showing badges is enough?" Alex asked casually. "I guess some people like to feel important." The officers exchanged a brief, sharp look. That moment was enough to show Alex that they were not in full control. One of them fumbled with a small notebook, flipping through pages like they were searching for authority in written words. Then the first officer moved closer, his hand hovering near Alex's shoulder. "Do not test us," he warned. Alex held their ground, raising one hand as if in surrender but keeping the other hand near the phone. "Test you?" No, I wouldn't dream of it. But I do believe in fairness, and fairness is talking first before acting. The fake officers paused. That was the first time someone had talked back without fear. Alex could almost see the doubt creeping into their eyes. Doubt was dangerous for people who relied entirely on power. Alex subtly stepped backward, pretending to give them space, while scanning the room for anything that could be used if the situation escalated. Every corner, every exit, every window, they knew their house better than anyone. Then Alex said softly, "I don't want trouble, but I also don't respond well to threats. Maybe you should reconsider your approach." The first officer's jaw tightened. "We are not bluffing. You will comply. Now." Alex's heart beat faster, but the expression stayed calm. "I see," Alex said, leaning slightly on the table, still recording everything. "You're serious. That's impressive. But let's make one thing clear. Threats don't impress me. They rarely work." The second officer shuffled nervously, muttering under his breath. Alex caught a few words. "Maybe we should just leave." That tiny slip was enough to give Alex confidence. These people were unsure. And uncertainty, Alex knew, was a weakness. "Look," Alex said, stepping closer now, keeping the tone casual but firm. "I don't know who sent you. But I do know one thing, you are here on borrowed authority." Borrowed. You are pretending to be more powerful than you are. And people who pretend usually get caught. The room went silent. The officer's breathing seemed faster now. Alex's calm words were doing their job. Fear had a way of flipping itself on those who relied on it. Suddenly, the first officer barked, "Enough talking. We are taking action." Alex raised an eyebrow. "Action? What kind of action?" The officer stepped closer, reaching toward Alex, trying to grab control. But Alex moved subtly to the side, their movements smooth, almost invisible. They had rehearsed these situations in their mind, always imagining the worst-case scenario. The officers glanced at each other, uncertain. Their fake confidence was cracking. Alex spoke again, softly this time, almost whispering, "You really don't know who you are dealing with, do you?" The officers froze. Something in Alex's voice made them hesitate, but they didn't understand why. Alex smiled faintly, the calm in their eyes growing stronger. "I can make this very easy or very difficult. Your choice." One of the officers whispered something to the other. Alex didn't catch it, but the tone was panic disguised as authority. They were losing control of the situation, and Alex could feel it. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. The officers shuffled uncomfortably, glancing around, checking the room for support or backup that wasn't there. Alex stayed calm, letting the tension build. Every second, every word, was a test, and Alex was winning. Then, in the quietest voice, Alex said, "You came here thinking fear would work. You thought shouting and badges could scare me. But you're wrong. You're very wrong." The first officer's face turned red. He wanted to act, to threaten, to force compliance, but something stopped him. He didn't know what Alex knew, and that uncertainty froze him in place. The second officer muttered again, more audibly this time, "Maybe, we made a mistake." Alex's eyes twitched in a faint smile. That tiny moment of doubt was all the proof Alex needed. These fake cops were just people pretending to have power. And pretending, Alex knew, was fragile. Outside, the street remained quiet. Neighbors had no idea what was happening inside this house. Birds still chirped. The sun still shone. But inside, the battle of nerves had begun and Alex was winning, without a single aggressive move. The fake HOA officers had grown bolder, but inside Alex's house, the atmosphere was shifting. What had started as a simple attempt to intimidate was now turning into confusion. The officers no longer looked entirely in control. Their steps were uncertain, their words sharp but shaky. Alex had sensed it. A small advantage had appeared, a crack in their confidence, and Alex was ready to exploit it. Alex leaned casually against the counter, pretending to be relaxed, sipping coffee as if nothing unusual was happening. But inside, their mind raced. Every small gesture, every twitch, every glance from the officers was being recorded, not just by the phone on the table, but by Alex's careful observation. The officers didn't know it yet, but their entire bluff was being documented. "You need to cooperate," one officer said again, trying to regain authority. "We can escalate this if necessary." "You don't want to test us?" Alex tilted their head slightly, looking thoughtful. "Escalate? That sounds serious. But before we do anything, maybe you should introduce yourselves properly. I'd like to know who I'm dealing with." The officers froze. It was a small thing, but it was enough to make them hesitate. No one had questioned them directly before. Most people complied out of fear, but Alex was doing something unexpected, questioning them. The second officer muttered, We don't need to do that right now." Alex smiled faintly. "No? That's strange. Usually people who are so confident about their power are eager to show it. Don't you think?" The first officer stepped closer, almost reflexively. "Listen, we are not here to play games. You will comply." Alex's smile widened slightly, just enough to unsettle them. "Oh, I'm not playing games. But I am observant. And observant people notice things. Little things. Tiny mistakes that give away the truth." The officers exchanged a glance, panic flickering in their eyes for the first time. Alex noticed it immediately, the shift from confidence to doubt. Doubt was a dangerous weakness. And Alex intended to press it. Alex continued softly, "The fact that your badges don't look real. Or that your uniforms seem too new. Or maybe that the rules you're enforcing aren't actually enforceable." The first officer's hand twitched. The second officer's face went pale. Alex had seen enough scams in their life to recognize the signs of fear disguised as authority. You don't understand," the first officer muttered. We have orders." Alex nodded slowly, keeping the tone calm, almost conversational. "Orders, yes. Orders from someone who thinks they can control people with fear. But orders don't make someone real authority. And pretending to be something you're not, well, that's dangerous. You could get caught. You could get in real trouble." The officers glanced at each other nervously. Alex could see their minds racing. Their bravado was cracking. Then Alex did something subtle but powerful. They picked up their phone and pressed record more visibly, letting the officers notice. "Funny thing about recording," Alex said lightly, "it makes people reveal a lot. Lies, threats, even intentions." The first officer's jaw tightened. You wouldn't." Alex smiled faintly. "I would. Because honesty is the best defense, and you're not being honest." "Not at all." For a few moments, there was silence. The room felt heavy, thick with tension. The officers wanted to act but didn't know how. Every bluff they had prepared seemed weaker now. Alex's calm, measured words had shifted the power subtly yet unmistakably. Then, in a quiet, almost casual tone, Alex said, "Look, you can keep trying to intimidate me. Or, you can leave. I promise, it will be easier if you choose wisely." The officers froze again. Fear was growing stronger now. The first officer muttered something under his breath, probably a warning to the second one. Alex caught the tone, noting how fragile their confidence had become. Alex's next words were soft, deliberate, almost a whisper. "You came here thinking I was just a normal resident. Someone you could scare with fake badges and rehearse threats. You thought this would be easy. But it's not. Not for you." The room went quiet. The tension was palpable. The fake officers were sweating under the pressure. Alex could feel the shift. The power dynamic had changed. And it was subtle, invisible, but it was real. Alex leaned slightly forward and said, "I could call this off. I could let you leave quietly. Or I could make sure the people you work for find out exactly what kind of enforcers they hired." The officer's eyes widened. Panic was now clearly visible. One of them stepped back, almost knocking into a chair. Their fake confidence had evaporated. Alex's final words for this moment were calm, quiet, but deadly. Think carefully. Because every choice you make from here will have consequences. For you. And with that, Alex leaned back, sipping coffee again, as if nothing had happened. The officers were frozen, trapped in their own fear, realizing too late that they had underestimated their target. Outside, the neighborhood remained peaceful. Kids laughed in the distance. Cars drove by. But inside this house, the battle had shifted. The fake HOA cops had walked into a storm of their own making. And Alex? Alex was ready. The tension in the living room was thick, almost like a visible fog. The fake HOA officers were sweating, uncertain, their fake confidence completely cracked. Every glance they exchanged screamed panic, though they tried hard to hide it. Alex, on the other hand, remained calm, almost casual, as if they were sipping coffee in a cafe rather than facing two armed imposters. Alex's eyes flicked toward the front door, then the windows, calculating escape routes, potential advantages, and exits. But an idea had just struck, a clever way to turn the fake officers' panic into outright confusion. You know, Alex said softly, almost like they were talking to themselves, it's funny. Most people who try to scare me don't realize how easy it is to confuse them, once you know their tricks. The first officer's hand twitched near their belt. Confuse us? Don't. Alex smiled faintly and held up a hand. No threats, no resistance. Just, let's see who's smarter. The second officer looked at their partner nervously. We need to finish this fast. Alex nodded slowly. Oh, I agree. Let's make it fast, but carefully. I'd hate for someone to make a mistake. Then Alex did something simple but brilliant. They pulled a small notebook off the table, pretending to jot down notes, but really, the notebook was a fake official document, one that made it look like they were calling for backup, FBI style. Alex wrote casually, letting the officers see each movement. That's strange, Alex said aloud, pretending to read the notes. According to these instructions, any person acting suspiciously in this neighborhood must be reported immediately. The officers blinked. Their eyes darted nervously. Wait, what instructions? The first officer asked. Alex didn't answer immediately. Instead, they let the tension hang, watching the panic grow. Their small, subtle actions, pretending to type on the phone, writing in the notebook, made the officers increasingly unsure. Every gesture suggested authority, but not fake authority. Real authority. You see, Alex said softly, sometimes, rules are more than words. And some people, sometimes they get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. The second officer shifted nervously, stepping back slightly. Maybe we should leave. Alex's smile widened, just a little. Leave? That's an option. But the other option, well, they tapped the notebook casually, is a report being filed. The first officer's face went pale. They tried to sound authoritative again. We're serious. Don't. Alex raised a finger, cutting him off. I know you're serious. That's the funny thing. Serious people are easy to handle if you know the game. The officers glanced at each other, uncertainty spreading like wildfire. Alex had achieved a small victory, the fake authority figure's panic was now visible. They were no longer intimidating, they were weak, confused, and desperate for guidance. Alex walked slowly toward the living room table, flipping open their laptop as if to look up something official. Let's double-check something, Alex said calmly. Sometimes, people pretend they have power. And sometimes, that power can vanish in an instant. The first officer's hand moved again, as if to grab Alex, but they hesitated, clearly unsure now. Alex smiled faintly, the calm in their eyes almost a warning. Go ahead. Try. But remember, one wrong move and this whole situation becomes very public. Panic was now fully setting in. The second officer whispered to the first, maybe we should leave right now. Alex leaned back, pretending to sip coffee again. You know, most people think bluffing works because people don't pay attention. But I do. And attention makes a difference. Suddenly, Alex pressed a button on the phone, turning on a recording app with a live stream notification. A faint red dot blinked on the screen. Oops, Alex said lightly, I almost forgot, everything is being watched. And everything is being saved. The first officer's face froze. The second officer's knees nearly buckled. They had walked into a trap. Not a physical trap, but a psychological one where their own fear and lies were being recorded, documented, and exposed. Alex chuckled softly, almost inaudible, like a predator enjoying a clever play. You see, Alex whispered, leaning closer to the officers, bluff someone long enough, and the game flips. And now, the game is mine. The officers exchanged terrified glances. Their plans, their confidence, even their fake power, were crumbling. Alex's calm demeanor, sharp observation, and small clever moves had shifted the balance completely. Outside, the neighborhood remained calm, unaware of the drama unfolding inside this modest house. But inside, the first real victory had been won. The fake officers were trapped, not physically, but mentally. Every word, every hesitation, every twitch had been noticed, recorded, and exploited. And Alex? Alex simply sat back, pretending to sip coffee, letting the officers stew in fear, knowing the next move would be even more decisive. The living room felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves were closing in. The fake HOA officers were no longer confident, they were desperate. Their bravado from earlier had evaporated, leaving only fear, uncertainty, and the faintest hint of panic. Alex, however, remained calm, a quiet force in the eye of the storm. You don't understand, the first officer said shakily, his voice cracking. We can call backup. Alex tilted their head slightly, feigning interest. Backup? Oh. Who exactly are you planning to call? The officer hesitated. The second officer stammered, I think, maybe the police? Alex smiled faintly, leaning casually against the counter. The police? That's bold. But calling the police after you've already threatened someone, entered their house without permission, well, I wonder how that will look. The first officer's face turned red, then pale. He had realized too late that their bluff might not survive scrutiny. Alex had turned the fake authorities' confidence into their weakness. You don't know who I am, the first officer snapped. We have rules to enforce. Alex's eyes narrowed just a little, the calm in their tone now carrying a dangerous edge. Rules? Yes, rules. But rules only matter when they're real. And pretending to enforce them? That's very risky. Suddenly, Alex pressed a small button on the phone. A live recording notification blinked. Oh, almost forgot, Alex said lightly. Everything is being recorded. Every threat. Every fake claim of authority. And it's all being documented. For the right people to see. Panic spread across the officers' faces. They hadn't realized that Alex had complete control over the digital evidence. Every word they had spoken, every bluff, every threat, they were trapped in their own lies. The second officer whispered urgently, we need to leave, now. Alex shook their head slowly. Leave? That's an option. But you don't get to walk away without consequences. That's not how this works. The officers glanced at each other, their fear now palpable. They were cornered, both literally and figuratively. Every step they had taken to intimidate Alex had backfired. You're bluffing, the first officer shouted, trying to regain control. You can't prove anything. Alex smiled faintly, almost coldly. Can't prove? Oh, I think proving things is my specialty. You see, some people think fear is enough. But evidence is permanent. And it's very convincing. The first officer's hand twitched near his belt again, desperate to act, desperate to regain authority. But Alex moved subtly, shifting to block any approach without even looking aggressive. Every movement was calculated, calm, and precise. "Think carefully," Alex said softly, almost whispering now. "You came here believing you could scare someone with fake badges and rehearse threats. But now, your own fear is working against you." The officers froze. Their eyes darted to every corner of the room, every exit, every shadow. They had walked into a trap far more sophisticated than they expected. Alex had done nothing overtly aggressive, yet their powerlessness was absolute. "You should know," Alex continued, "most people who pretend to be something they're not end up exposed. And those who make threats usually regret it very quickly." The tension in the room was unbearable. The officer's breathing was uneven, hands shaking. Every second was an eternity. Outside, the world continued as if nothing had happened, birds chirping, cars passing, neighbors oblivious. But inside, the game had shifted completely. Then Alex leaned slightly forward, speaking softly but clearly, "You're running out of options. Every threat you've made, every attempt at intimidation, it's all documented. And soon, everyone will know." The officers glanced at each other, the weight of realization heavy on their shoulders. Panic had replaced their confidence entirely. They were no longer fake authority figures, they were just two scared individuals, trapped by their own lies. Alex's next words were deliberate, cutting through the silence like a knife. "Now, you can do one of two things. Leave quietly. Or, continue, and see what happens when the real authorities find out what you've done." The first officer swallowed hard, fear evident in every feature. He opened his mouth to speak but no words came. The second officer's knees nearly buckled. Their desperation was complete. Alex's calm gaze swept over them, almost amused, almost merciless. "I warned you," Alex said quietly. "But warnings only work if someone listens. And you, clearly didn't." At that moment, the room felt charged, the tension almost visible. The fake officers had escalated too quickly, misjudged their target, and now faced a force far greater than they could handle. And Alex? Alex was ready for the next move, the moment that would fully turn the tables. The living room was heavy with tension. The fake HOA officers had reached the limits of their panic. Every twitch, every nervous glance, every stammering word betrayed their fear. They had come thinking they had power. They had underestimated one person, and now that miscalculation was about to cost them everything. Alex stood perfectly calm, leaning slightly on the counter, sipping coffee as if the world outside hadn't changed at all. But inside, the storm had settled into precision. Every move Alex had made so far had led to this moment, the ultimate reveal. "You've made a mistake," Alex said softly, their voice cold and measured. "You came here thinking you could intimidate me. Threaten me. Enter my home and act as if you had authority. But you didn't see who I really am." The first officer's hand twitched toward his belt, as if to grab something. You can't." Alex's eyes narrowed slightly. "I warned you. I gave you chances. And you chose to ignore them." With a calm motion, Alex reached into their pocket and pulled out a badge. Not a fake badge. A real FBI badge, gleaming under the afternoon light. The officers froze instantly. Their mouths opened, but no words came. "I'm FBI," Alex said clearly, their tone quiet but lethal in its precision. "Everything you just tried, threats, intimidation, fake authority, has been recorded. Every move you made, every claim you uttered, every lie, it's all evidence now. And you just walked straight into it." The first officer's face turned white. "And, no, that can't." Alex didn't break eye contact. "It can," Alex said, stepping closer, the calm intensity radiating from them. "And it will. The real authorities will want to know who sent you, why you entered a private residence without cause, and why you thought fear could work here. You're about to be very famous, for all the wrong reasons." The second officer stumbled back, almost tripping over a chair. Their fake composure had vanished entirely. We didn't know." Alex shook their head slowly. "Of course you didn't. That's the problem with pretending to be powerful. You don't realize who you're dealing with until it's too late." The first officer, desperate, tried to grab the badge, as if trying to disprove it. Alex's hand moved subtly, blocking the motion with effortless control. "Do not touch me," Alex said calmly, the words carrying the weight of authority. "This badge doesn't just show my identity, it shows the consequences of your actions. And trust me, you do not want to find out what happens next." Silence fell. The officers were trapped, caught between panic and reality. Every step they had taken to intimidate Alex had been a miscalculation. Every bluff they had relied on had collapsed. They had walked into a storm that they could neither control nor escape. Alex leaned slightly forward, voice softening, almost conversational. "You thought I was just a resident. Someone you could scare. But the truth is, you underestimated the wrong person. And now, you're going to learn what happens when you do." The first officer's face crumpled in panic. "Please, we didn't know. We were told." Alex raised a finger. "Save your excuses. Everything has been recorded. Every threat, every fake badge, every intimidation attempt. And it's all evidence. You have two options now: admit your mistake or face the consequences." The second officer's knees buckled. What consequences?" Alex's calm gaze swept the room. "Consequences for impersonating authority, for threatening someone unlawfully, and for entering private property without permission. You walked into the wrong house. You picked the wrong target. And now, you're caught." For a long moment, silence filled the room. The officers were frozen, overwhelmed. Outside, the quiet suburban street remained peaceful, oblivious to the drama inside. But inside, the power dynamic had completely flipped. Alex took a deep breath and smiled faintly. "I gave you chances. You ignored them. Now, the rest is out of my hands." The officers exchanged a glance, finally realizing they had lost entirely. Their fake confidence, their bluff, their threats all useless against someone who was truly trained, truly prepared, and truly in control. And as the camera or the phone continued recording, the audience saw it all, the moment the fake HOA cops realized the terrifying truth. They had not been dealing with an ordinary resident. They had walked straight into the presence of a real FBI agent, and their arrogance, lies, and threats would have consequences they could not escape. Alex's final words hung in the air, echoing with quiet authority, "I'm FBI. And you just learned the hardest lesson of all: never underestimate the calm person in the house, especially when they are watching, recording, and ready." The room was silent. The two fake HOA officers stood frozen, their fake confidence completely shattered. Every threat they had made, every attempt to intimidate Alex, had crumbled under the weight of truth and skill. They had walked into the wrong house, picked the wrong person to scare, and now, the consequences were unavoidable. Alex set their coffee cup down calmly, the motion deliberate, controlled, and almost casual. The phone was still recording, the red blinking dot silently documenting every word, every reaction, every flicker of panic on the imposters' faces. "Let's make this simple," Alex said softly, each word deliberate. "You made a choice. You pretended to have authority. You threatened someone unlawfully. And now, it's all recorded. The authorities will want to know everything." The first officer's face twisted in panic. We can explain." Alex shook their head slowly. "You could. But the truth speaks louder than explanations. Every move you made, every lie, is here, and it's enough." The second officer's knees buckled. Please, don't." Alex leaned forward slightly, voice calm but firm. "I won't need to. The law will handle the rest. And trust me, it won't be kind to people who impersonate authority and try to bully others." With a quick motion, Alex pressed a button on the phone. A notification lit up. The recording was live, streaming to the right contacts. Any attempt by the officers to lie, resist, or escape would now be public evidence. "You see," Alex said softly, almost conversationally, "the difference between fear and authority is simple. Authority is real. Fear is borrowed. And you? You borrowed confidence and lost it." The imposters tried to protest again, but no words came out. Every bluff, every fake threat, had been dismantled by calm intelligence and subtle tactics. They were trapped by their own arrogance. Alex walked slowly toward the door, leaving a small but meaningful pause between words. Consider this a warning to anyone who thinks they can use fake power to intimidate others. One day, someone prepared will catch you. And it won't be pretty. Outside, the quiet neighborhood remained oblivious to the drama that had unfolded. The sun cast long shadows, and the birds continued to chirp. But inside the house, the lesson was clear: pretending to have authority is dangerous, underestimating someone clever is deadly, and actions always have consequences. The first officer glanced nervously at the second, realizing for the first time that their facade had been completely destroyed. Their fake power had no hold. They were exposed, defeated, and utterly powerless. Alex paused at the doorway, turning slightly. And to anyone watching this, always be aware. Look closely. Question authority. And remember, sometimes the calmest person in the room is the one controlling everything. With that, Alex walked out of the living room, leaving the fake HOA officers to their fate. Outside, the day was calm, almost ordinary, but inside, a lesson had been carved into their memory forever. As the camera continued recording, the final moment lingered, the imposters, exposed, defeated, and powerless, while Alex's calm, calculated presence left an impression far stronger than any shouting or threat could. And just as the video ended, Alex's last words echoed softly, almost like a whisper. I warned them, they didn't listen. But the truth always comes out. Always. The story was over, but the audience was left with a mix of relief, thrill, and awe. The fake HOA officers had been exposed, but Alex's intelligence, calmness, and courage had taken the story to a level that viewers would never forget.